Why?
Okay.
Speak with Kath when she comes back. When she comes with the papers, speak to her.
He can hear you.
Okay, welcome everybody to this afternoon's meeting of the Joint Henley and Hertford Neighbourhood Plan Committee. I think we're just about all on board now. First item is apologies for absence. I've probably got Lawrence Plant and Glenn Lambert down there. I'm not sure about Michelle Thomas. Jodie, have you heard anything?
She said she was going to be late.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there's anybody else, is there? I think we're fine up to there. Item 2 is declaration of interests, pecuniary interests. Does anybody from the working group have any pecuniary interests of anything on the agenda this afternoon? Don't see anybody. Item 3 is public participation. This is for anybody from the public who wishes to either ask any questions or make any statements of items to do with the Joint Henley and Hertford Neighbourhood Plan Review. I know I've got Trevor Howell from Henley, and I think I've got a Nick Digby from Rotherfield Grays.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, thank you. If I can ask Trevor to speak first. We normally take Henley members first, then people from outside the town afterwards. That's the way it works, but everybody get a chance to ask a question. So I'll go to Trevor first, Trevor Howell.
Okay, thanks very much. Can you all hear me okay?
You're
Yep.
fine.
Could you speak up a little?
Sorry?
Sorry, could you speak up a bit, Trevor?
Okay, I'm using the mic from the actual webcam, so it should be okay. The first point I want to make is about Gillett's site. The first point I wanted to make, which I made on email to you all if you read it, is that my understanding is that Lucy's Farm and Gillett's really ought to be regarded as one single site. This point was made several years ago before the referendum on the last iteration of the plan, when an ex-construction industry lawyer made the point that the one will lead to the other. So I think it'd be only fair, if you accept that point, it would be only fair if the public were made aware of this, because there's no point voting for Gillett's site or Lucy's Farm site thinking that's it. Then you find that the other site comes into play almost automatically, if not immediately, in a few years' time. Because the argument would be if Gillett's site gets up and running, then there'd be a nice gap where Lucy's Farm is, and they would argue on the basis of infill to develop that site. And we know that Bloor Homes are in pole position already, having bought 53 Blandy Road as access. They've said they want to develop Lucy's Farm, and then we know they're talking to Gillett School. So I think it would be only honest if the public knew that. The second thing I wanted to say was that, again, this is based on past experience, that I would like to know what the status of a consultation is. I know that the consultation is not a formal vote, but the last time round there were two main consultations on the list of sites. The very first one at the very beginning put Lucy's Farm and Gillett's at the bottom of the list, and then later on, as the final plan was being put into place, there was a public meeting at the town hall, and when the Gillett site came up, there had been a public consultation before that meeting. And 53% of the people who voted against, 53% voted against Gillett's site being included in the plan. And the consultant at the time, Nexus, dismissed that, saying that the margin was, or the majority was too slender to warrant a change in the plan. Yet the neighbourhood plan itself could go through on a simple majority of 51 to 49. And it just went through on the nod. No one seemed to object. And so members of the public like me were put in a position where we were voting against Gillett's being included in the plan, and then we were asked to vote on the neighbourhood plan in total, and we were faced with the prospect of either the neighbourhood plan not going through because it didn't have enough support, and we stuck to our plans not to vote for it because of Gillett's, or we voted for the plan and therefore voted for Gillett's by definition. And I don't think we should be put in that position again. So I would really like to know what the status of a public consultation is going to be this time round, because I did an awful lot of work last time. I did a huge amount of campaigning personally, a lot of due diligence work, including with the Secretary of State for Education, the funding agency, the school, leaflets, and it was all for nothing because it went through on the basis of other criteria, not public vote. And this is a people's plan, and I think the public consultation should carry some weight. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, so that's the 2 points I wanted to make today.
Right. The first one, Trevor, you said you thought the land should go through in one ownership. My answer to that would be my answer to that is there are two different owners for the two different sites. Hence, in my view, they will stay as they are. And if you look at the amount of sites that are along the road from Henley to Shiplake, there are probably about 4 or 5 sites there that are attached to other sites, which obviously are all in different ownership. Now, I wouldn't think would want to pull all those. I think it's about 4 or 5 sites there. You wouldn't want to pull all of those in together, because there may be some of them that probably wouldn't even be considered, Trevor, where if you put them all in together, you may well wish to consider them. And I think what happened in the past on Gillett's and Lucy's Farm, obviously we all have opinions on that. I have opinion on Gillett's, and obviously I also have an opinion on Lucy's Farm. But I don't see how we can bring those two in together as they are in 2 different ownerships. So that would be my answer for that. They are 2 different ownerships. Bloor Homes may well be talking to Gillett's, but that's not up for this working group to take on board. I think that's between Gillett's and Bloor Homes. For all we know, Gillett's may be talking to other developers as well, because they are working through an agent at the moment from Reading. So my opinion was that those 2 pieces of land, similar to the ones on the road to Shiplake, would be kept apart. On the public participation, we're hoping for this to take place on about the 2nd week in February, on the Friday and the Saturday in the town hall. We've got some times written out at the moment, and that's just a question if we are allowed to do that. My view is, and I totally agree with it, is the public's plan, and I think we should listen to the public, and I'm sure this will be recorded and someone will obviously bring this back to me one day. But we obviously will listen to the public, and then whatever comes back from the presentations and the exhibitions, I think we do have a small working party, Trevor, on site selection of myself, Kester George, Michelle Thomas and Joan Clark. And I think it would be for us to take all that information on board and then go back to the working group, that's everyone here, to put our views forward on what we found out. And then it'd be up to the working group then to put their view to the planning committee, and then obviously on to full council, with obviously the support of Harpston, obviously. So yeah, I think things took place last time on the original plan, which probably shouldn't have done. But then again, I think you'll always get the odd plot where someone's not happy with, and I think we found this last time, Trevor, where dare I say the people from where you lived were all in favour of the Fair Mile. Yeah, everybody that lived in the Fair Mile were in favour of Gillett's and Lucy's Farm. So it's obviously very difficult when you're sitting in the middle to choose a piece of land. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, as long as it's just really what the status of a consultation actually is. If you're going to treat it as just a guide to what you might want to discuss, then that's one matter. That I just feel that if there is a public vote, then I like to think that it would be carried. If there was a majority, it would go in the right direction, the opposite direction.
Well, it's obviously very difficult with the public vote, and you may know this through running the boys' football club. there's obviously things that take place there that which you probably don't agree with them and make different decisions. So you probably overrule, maybe, 400 of your parents. And obviously it's very difficult. It's obviously very difficult when we are the elected people to come up with final decisions on it. And unfortunately, and I've learnt this over the years, however hard I try, I can't please everybody. And I try and support the majority. So I'll come back to you, Jody. You obviously try and support the large majority. Sometimes when it's even, sometimes when it's pretty even, it's a job to make a decision, and you have to make a decision. So we can leave that. Sorry, Jody, did you wish to speak on that?
Yeah, so you've covered the points. I just wanted to clarify that we will be holding exhibitions with these sites in February, and that's more of a informal consultation process, and then as part of that we'll be getting feedback from the public, including yourselves, and then feeding that into our site selection process, and then a formal pre-submission consultation will be taking place later in the year. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, could I go on to you, Nick Digby? And I think, Nick, you're from Rotherfield Greys or Rotherfield?
Yeah, hello. Just to introduce myself, for those that don't know me, I'm chair of Rotherfield Greys Parish Council. I just wanted to bring to your attention, we're very concerned about the Highlands Park development. Big concern for us in terms of the amount of traffic it's generating and going to push through the village. Everything that turns left out of Highlands Park has to pass through our village. So, it is a major concern. There's already a problem with the amount of traffic and the speed of the traffic as well, and this is only going to make things worse. The sharp corner outside of St Nicholas Church and the Monsters Arms is a particular concern due to the fact that it's a sharp bend and people are coming around there far too quickly. Many of you will have noticed a couple of years ago that a chunk of the Maltsters was taken out by a car driving straight into it. And it's also a point there whereby we have the church, we have the pub, we have 2 footpaths, we have the bus stop. So there's a lot of pedestrian traffic relative to our village in that area. And there's very little provision for pedestrians around it at the moment. There's no curbs, there's potholes where pedestrians walk off the road. It's frankly quite shocking when you look at it. I get a lot of messages from local residents there about the dangers, the speed of the traffic. They're all worried that there's going to be an accident sooner or later and loss of life. Our solution is to provide a pavement running across the front of the church and round past the Maltsters and the 5 houses beyond that, with a prominent curb which will influence drivers to slow down and make the road safer for drivers and pedestrians. Now, we've got an estimate from OCC Highways, and this will cost £65,000 to make this happen. If the Highland Park development can contribute to this and just keep one local resident from catastrophic accident, I think it's well worth it. And it's only a relatively small part of the SIL payments that the Highlands Park project is generating. That's it. Thank you for listening. Anybody got any questions?
Let me just respond to that first. This working group does not have any money to spend on any items like that. You're talking about SIL money. I'm not sure if you've already been in touch with Henley Town Council. I think I've seen a paper come forward before with all the figures on there, plus the plan. But I would suggest you probably write to Henley Town Council again to see if they would put any of their SIL money in it, and also to Harpston. But I say that this committee or this working group does not have any money whatsoever to put into items like this. I would just pick up on the point, and I'm not saying because Alan Pontin's here today, but I would take up on the point on Highlands Farm, and let's say you may well get some SIL money from that. But there isn't that amazingly, and Kester George may say I'm incorrect, but there isn't the kind of traffic coming out of Highlands Farm at this moment in time. And I know there's only about 75 units are occupied there, but there's nowhere near, from what I've seen, and I pass it quite a lot, there's nowhere near the kind of traffic coming out there that people think they are. And just gone on even farther, you know, I used to drive up to Woodcut a fair bit, so obviously I take that road. I'm in Elizabeth Road, and the majority of traffic coming your way is coming from Sonning Common. There's an amazing amount of traffic coming that way, and if it's coming that way, it's going back that way. And there's a lot of traffic as well, obviously going to Gillett School from, you know, dare I say, Peppered, Sonning Common, Sonning Common area. So I don't believe that Highlands Farm should be accountable for a massive extra traffic going your way. As for the safety angle, I think that's for, I would suggest, Oxfordshire County Council. I'm not sure if Oxfordshire County Council have looked at it and has come up with a view on it. I'll be interested to know that. But I think, as I say, finally, I think you need to you know, request to Harpston Parish Council and obviously Henley Town Council if you wish any seal money to go into that project that you're suggesting. Sorry, we can't hear you.
No, sorry. Thank you for that. We have been talking to Harpston Council over the last few years, but we haven't had any a positive response, should we say. And now that Henley and Harpston are sort of jointly covering this, we thought it'd be worth talking to you again. And I take your points about Oxfordshire County Council and safety, but we have talked to them about it, but for them it's not a priority, I'm afraid. So they don't want to fund it.
No, I wasn't so much talking about funding, and I don't want to go into a big debate on it, but I think if you could get support from Oxfordshire County Council, given a reason to build this footpath, you may get better support from the two councils, Harpston and Henley Town Council. That was my comment on that. Okay.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, it's a pleasure. I don't think there's anybody else wish to speak from the public? Yeah, Ian Clark.
Thank you. May I suggest about speaking to OCC about having speed cameras put there at a 20-mile speed limit. So if anybody gets caught speeding, they get the fines, and that money could go towards helping to build your footpaths.
Yeah, okay, we'll note that. Okay, thank you. Okay, then can we move on to item 4 to agree the notes from the meeting of the 26th of October 2020. Someone could move those. Anybody? Sarah Langton proposed it, seconder by Ian Clark. Okay, can we all accept those? All in favour? Thank you. Item 5 is update from the planning officer. So I'll move that over to Jodie.
Yeah, thank you. So work's been continuing on developing the policies and topic papers, and we'll be discussing that under each working group on the next agenda item. You'll be aware of the neighbourhood plan survey, which I've asked for your input on. This survey will be going live in the next week, and it will be open until the 11th of January. We'll be distributing a flyer to each household in Henley to publicise the survey, and I'll speak to you, Kester, about distributing to Harpston after this meeting. Nice. The feedback of the survey will be brought together by Community First, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that back to the next committee. We've also received some funding money from locality, up to £10,000, and this will help to fund the conservation area appraisal. My final update is in relation to the South Oxfordshire local plan. The inspector has issued his report on the local plan, and he concludes that it is sound, subject to the inclusion of main modifications. Scrutiny, Cabinet and full council will be considering adopting this local plan in meetings this week. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody wish to ask any questions on that? No, I don't see anybody. Okay, thank you, Jodie, for that. Item 6 are the updates from the working groups. I think we're in a situation now where the topic papers are going to come out of these working groups, and I think over the next 4 to 6 weeks that we'll be spending more time on that. I know Jodie's going to spend some time on those. I'm not sure if anybody just briefly has got any updates on any of the working groups on the agenda. The first one was the schools, colleges and doctors' surgeries. If anybody would like to make a comment. Councillor Michelle Thomas.
The next schools census will be available between February and March. With the rollout of the vaccine, I just don't think it's the right time to ask the doctors to partake in this kind of questionnaire at the moment. But I'm happy to be overruled by people if you think I should make contact.
Yeah, I think all that was in the past, Michelle. Was we basically were looking for numbers on was there any space on the doctor's surgeries, and I think the information that came back to say that there was some areas where they could take more patients. Yeah, go on, come back.
Yeah, that questionnaire was completed quite some time ago, so we've definitely moved on from that. So we definitely need an update from them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll leave that with you then. The next item 2, libraries, community halls, and sports and leisure facilities.
Just like to just raise an issue that when the original topic paper was done, it was actually for schools, care for the elderly health facilities. And then when the second, more recently, that we split that into the 2 groups, the one that Michelle is reporting on, and added on to is the one that I'm reporting on, which is the one on libraries, community hall, sports and leisure facilities. And there's nobody actually looking after care homes at the moment. Now, whether that was a deliberate change in the compositions of the working groups or whether it was a slip. But at the moment, there isn't anything on care. The original topic paper did have a section on care homes, which would need to be updated in the same way that the doctor's surgeries would. But as far as I can see, nobody's looking after that at the moment.
Okay, Jodie.
Yeah, this is a piece of work that I've highlighted that needs to be looked at. So I'll focus on that and update that next time.
Okay, thank you. The next one was the transport.
Oh, sorry, just briefly on libraries, to go back to what I am actually reporting on, which is libraries. Just to say that obviously they've all been suffering, community halls and everything as far as revenue is concerned, by the continual lockdown. So they'll all be in some sort of financial difficulty. Again, I haven't spoken to them about the effect of COVID shutdown on their finances, but I don't imagine it will have been good. Whether it's a cause for concern or not, I don't know at the moment. We could perhaps ask.
Okay, thank you. Transport, Patrick, do you want to speak briefly to this one? We can't hear you, Patrick.
So I don't normally mute myself, but yeah, thank you. We had a very good meeting with Councillor Stefan Gavishak, representing the Transport Strategy Group, and we've got a number of topics out of that we want to now assess. We've got another meeting on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I think it is. Yeah, and from that we'll have a definitive list with some ideas of what is and isn't covered by the local plan, and also some ideas of what we can use from the Knightsbridge plan to cover it. And then there's, I think, the potential. Jodie, Fiona and I had a very good meeting with Dan Stone, and we were primarily talking about climate, and we can come on to that in a minute, but he said he could also cover transport as well. And if we get it done soon, he can cover it for free up until they think they'll run out of money in February. So we've got to pull our finger out and get our stuff done, and we can get some work done by him.
Okay, is that all?
That's it.
Yeah. Anybody else wish to speak on that? No. Car parks, which I've done the topic papers on that, very encouraging to see them full, which they were today, and they were all over the weekend. So maybe we will start discussing putting another floor on the Kings Road car park, which I know not everybody's in favour with, but it was good to see them full over the weekend anyway. And even this morning when I was within town, and that obviously shows us that we do need more car park spaces, which I think everybody would agree with that, except for the people that don't wish cars to come into town. I can see Don having a little grin on that one. So I say the topic paper is almost complete on that, and yeah, I don't think we need any more work unless Jeff wants to do anything. Jeff Luckett wants to do anything on it. Obviously not.
Oh, no, sorry, I was trying to unmute Councillor Arlen. No, I'm in agreement with you. We want some more car parking. I've been going back through the Henley Society records for many, many years. This was talked about when Waitrose was put in place, a multi-storey car park. Nothing has happened. Cars aren't going to go away. And I think you're right. We need more parking space in the town centre. That's all I have to say on that subject.
I'm sure not everybody will support that, but it's a view of quite a few people. Anybody else wish to speak on that? No. Little 5, new housing permitted development rights. We're gradually now getting the facts and figures from SODC. I have a paper, unfortunately it's confidential, but after Thursday it probably won't be as confidential as it is today on different figures for one thing or another. David Whitehead.
Well, I think a statement of how I see the position at the moment together with the spreadsheet, and it seems to me that we've got enough in hand in terms of planning permissions already granted to meet the requirement of the new neighbourhood plan, which I think Joji has just confirmed as being 116, without encroaching on any greenfield sites whatsoever. So we don't need Gillett's Field, we don't need Drawback Hill, we don't need extra.
Can I just stop you there, Dave? I don't think we should be talking about specific areas that are going to come forward in an exhibition. I don't think you should be preempting on ones that you think we shouldn't have. So can we just leave that out, please?
Well, okay, I was just illustrating a number of greenfield sites. But it seems that if we go ahead with the sites that were already in the first neighbourhood plan, some of which have returned in the second updated version of submissions, if we accept the brownfield sites from them, that is sufficient. Now, I don't know if anyone wants to challenge the figures I've produced. Another way of looking at it is that when the first or the existing neighbourhood plan was produced, that was scheduled to take 500 houses in Henley. But since then, we've had planning permissions granted for Thames Farm, that's 95 units, Anderson House, that's 43 units, the Smith Centre, 78 units, Brook House, 10, numerous smaller windfill sites, totaling about 90, which altogether total more than 300 housing units. Now, in relation to the 500 that were scheduled, that's a 50% increase. And the existing neighbourhood plan is scheduled to run until 2027. And already, after less than halfway there, we've got 50%, 60% in excess. So again, that throws into doubt the need for further sites. So that's the point of my submission. It seems to me that the discussions building up momentum behind various sites, and I think if it went to a vote of the town, the majority would prefer Henley not to be dominated by further housing estates, apart from some that are needed for social housing. And in that connection, I might mention another point that I don't know what the status is of the offer of Miss Noble to donate a field in the edge of Harpston between the road and the allotments. But a solution to that would seem to be that if she sells it to
Well, let's just. Well, no, I'm not going to take this, David. I'm sorry. This is nothing to do with with what you're dealing with. I don't think we should second guess what people are going to do with bits and pieces of land. I think this will all come out when we do the presentations and the exhibition in February. I don't think it's up to us to tell the people what should and shouldn't happen to land. That may well come, in March, April time, when we have to start choosing pieces of land. The other problem we do have, and hopefully you will agree with this, is that now the examiner has gone through the local plan, he's used some specific wording on numbers, and one of the two or three of the words were at least, and I'll come to Jody in a minute. Yeah, a couple of the words were at least, so we're looking at a number at least. We're not looking at a final figure. Yeah, we may well come up with one at the end of the day, but at the moment we are still looking at a piece of land. But I think all this will change over the next few months. Jody.
I just wanted to say that I'll be speaking about this under a later agenda item 8, just to clarify that.
Okay, all right, thank you. So could you send me your latest list, David?
Well, I've circulated, and I think Jody circulated it as well.
Yeah, one I couldn't open for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
I can send it again if you want.
Okay, would you? Okay, thank you. It's probably my computer.
I got it, David.
Next item is little 6, business and community engagement. Do you want to speak to that, Jody, just briefly?
Yeah. So there's 2 reports there from Community First. They're both just to note. One's on climate emergency focus group, which was a really helpful discussion around what they wanted to see within the neighbourhood plan. It proposes some recommendations that we'll be considering moving forward. The second report from Community First is based on community-led housing session that was held. Again, this was a helpful starting point, and looking at ways and how we could start that up, and how the neighbourhood plan could support this type of housing. I'll talk again more about that under agenda item 8.
Okay, thank you. Item little 7, liaison with other parishes. Nothing further than that. I've had a couple of chats with Tame, but nothing that anybody would wish to know. Item 8, review of all the existing sites. Well, this will come up now when, after the exhibition, I think we'll be up to those to that small working group to go through all the paperwork and bring forward for consideration certain sites. Item little 9, industrial land. The only piece that's come forward, as far as I can see, so far, is the piece up at, dare I say, Highlands Farm. There was a piece laid out there when they gave the presentation. I don't believe anything else has come forward on that, unless anybody else can remind me. I'm looking around at the moment. I don't think anything else has. That's the only piece I can see has come forward. Site selection. there again, this will come forward with the after the exhibition in February. Conservation area review. Jodie?
I just wanted to go one step back because we had
sorry.
some recommendations for that, the previous one, in terms of one of them is to consider the site options and assessment addendum report.
Sorry, yeah.
That was produced by ACOM to assess the sites that have been submitted since they undertook the full site assessment. And these sites, this identifies sites for development which are potentially suitable for allocation in the neighbourhood plan, and comprises an objective assessment of each site. So first of all, just to note that report. The second one is to consider whether to take the additional sites included within that report further for consideration. This, just to note that this is the start of the site selection process that we've already stated before. No decisions will be made based on this, and there'll be further engagement with the public at public exhibitions in February next year. There'll also be further consideration with regards to these sites in terms of what the actual proportionate need is for that, and also in relation to other criteria in terms of how well they're related to existing settlement and infrastructure. So just to note and to consider taking those forward for further consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I missed that. Yeah, all that's on pages 23 to 62 and then 63 to 64. That gives you all the list of the sites, the 13 sites that I think we accepted should go forward to the presentation, and the reasons why. Unless anybody wishes to speak against it. Yeah, Rebecca.
So which sites are you going to put forward to the consultation? Is it only the ones that are green and yellow? Because there are some sites that are rated red that are in the existing plan.
Yeah,
sorry, go
on. So yeah, this report just focuses on those additional sites that have been considered. And we also spoke obviously earlier this year in terms of the full list of all of those sites put forward in the call for sites. So we've made recommendations in terms of whether to consider those forward based on that ACOM evidence.
So are you saying, I'm not trying to get into individual sites, but for example, the Gillett site is red rated by ACOM in this report.
That's the other Gillett site, isn't it? It's not the original one that's got that's in the neighbourhood plan. There is another one as well. That's not the one we're bringing forward. We're only bringing the original one forward.
Because there's two. There's sites. Yeah. There's land at Gillett School and playing fields at Gillett School, and they're both red rated.
Yeah, the other one's already included in the neighbourhood plan, isn't it? I think you'll find if you look at the plan, there are other areas there which aren't in the original neighbourhood plan, and we've disregarded those. So we're only bringing the original one back.
Okay, so you're saying site 827 and site 1255. Those are both different sites. The one that was in the original neighbourhood plan, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for those as well, there is another one, another red one, which has come forward, which is the land between the rugby club and Swiss Farm, the piece of land there. I believe that one's red as well. But there is a note at the bottom reference the new neighbourhood plan. If the new neighbourhood plan is adopted on Thursday evening, that then does leave. Sorry, the local plan. If the local plan's adopted on Thursday at SODC, there was a proviso on the bottom, quite a few of these pieces of land, to say that if we couldn't find sufficient houses within the built-up boundary of Henley, we could then look at these just outside the built-up area. So that does leave it wide open that way with the new local plan. So that's the reason these were all brought forward. So there should, I think the figure at the end, there should have been 13, if you can correct me, Jodie, if I'm wrong, there should be 13 pieces of land coming forward.
To be considered further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I say, they're only to be considered, even though they are, they could be green, amber or red. But when you look at the reasoning, even for the red, which we may not even consider after the exhibition, but we just felt they had to come forward because of the wording with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else want to bring up anything on those two reports? That was on item 10. Can't see anything. Item 11 was a conservation area review and local list. Jodie.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, now received funding from locality to partly fund the conservation area review. Purcell have been appointed to undertake this work and will be helping them to pull together the baseline information to start this review. If you have any good local history books or pamphlets of Henley and Harpston, then please let me know so I can send these over to include within that information. That would be really helpful.
Not to put Kester on the spot, but this is to cover Harpston as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that £10,000 going to cover Henley and Harpston?
No, there's partly needs to be probably funded from Harpston, but we can talk about that at another point or now.
Will there be any more money needed from Henley as well then?
I think it will be covered by the Harpston proportion of the review. If we get the money from Harpston, that would be.
Kester.
What is are you talking about the Harpston proportion of the review? I mean, are you talking about the 34,000 that we've already paid?
No, this is just solely for the conservation area review.
But we haven't agreed to pay anything for that.
I think I remember back, Kester, that you did say that if Harpston was to come into that review, you may well consider partly funding it.
Obviously, we might owe a small share, but we haven't been told what that share would be or might be, and we certainly haven't agreed to it. And I think Sarah will agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
As long as you...
Yes, Sarah.
It's the first I've heard of it, so we need a bit more detail so we can discuss.
Yeah, I'll send that over to you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had discussed it before, Sarah, and Kester's memory is just agreeing with that, I believe. But we're not talking about thousands of pounds, so there's no need to get too excited at this moment in time. But we'll obviously discuss this as we move forward.
No, what I agreed to was that the study should cover Harpston as well.
Yeah.
No mention was made, as far as I know, of the cost of it. And that is a separate point that I must put to Harpston Parish Council.
Let's get some details on the costings first, Kester, before we come back on that. It's pointless discussing it with the parish council if it may not happen. So let's get the let's get the exact costing that it's going to cost to do the review, because I don't believe we got a figure on that yet, Jodie.
Thank you.
Hold on, wait, one at a time, Jodie.
Yeah, I do have a figure for that, so I can send that over to them.
Okay. Yeah, Kester.
The terms of reference for this study of the conservation area, it's not obvious that it should include Harpston at all.
The only fairly likely area would be Harpston Court, Harpston Church, and the immediate surrounds, the park area. So I would need to be convinced that we qualify.
I think, why don't you go back to the parish council and ask them if they would like the conservation area review to take in Harpston then? Firstly, if we can get some advice on you, then if you wish that to take place in Harpston or not, that would probably be the best way forward. But as you've just said yourself, there are certain areas that would probably come into it. So as we're going to do it, it would seem to make common sense to do it under the whole plan, under the joint Henley and Harpston plan, rather than the Henley part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And the last one I've got is the climate emergency 2030. Who would like to speak to that?
Go on. First of all, I'd like to ask Jodie if she's distributed the CFO consultation, because I don't think I've seen a copy of the consultation for the environment, the climate one. Did you circulate that?
The Community First report on the focus group of the climate.
Yeah.
It's in the agenda.
Yes, I think she did.
It's included within the agenda.
Okay, it's in the agenda. Thank you. I just haven't. There's an awful lot of pages in the agenda. So I haven't got to that.
Telling me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Anybody else wish to speak on that?
Could I finish?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on.
Just to say that we've been given a very similar situation to transport, in that we've got now revised policies from the local plan, and we've got to find out what the gaps are between those, because essentially we must not and cannot include policies that duplicate the local plan policies. But we've given first of all, we've got that consultation or the focus group to study, and then we've also got input from the climate emergency working group itself, and there's a paper that they're planning to put before the planning committee that raises a number of points that we need to consider in this. So that's really Rebecca, me, Jackie, and Ken. If you want to get involved in that one as well, very happy to involve you.
Thank you. Right, okay, let's move on from there, unless anybody has got any other comments. Okay, item 7, the Oxfordshire Neighbourhood Plans Alliance, otherwise the ONPA, which Patrick is vice chairman of.
Oh yeah, all right. Okay, all right, rubbing it. Yeah, just to say that I hope you appreciate that Henley is Henley and Harpston are the most represented neighbourhood plan group in the whole county. We have altogether some 8 or 9 people now who are on the mailing list. So we're getting good value out of it, I think, in the papers that are coming forward. And not much else to report at the moment. Okay.
Anybody wish to speak that have been to these meetings?
I'd only just like to add, we within Greener Henley and also the Climate Emergency Working Group, we're working on a green vision for Henley, which will come forward in time.
Okay, thank you. Right, now this is the biggest part of the agenda today. Item 8, the housing needs assessment. You'll see a paper in front of you, the Henley and Harpston Housing Needs Assessment, which was dated January 2020. The reason we haven't brought this forward before, because a lot of it ties in with the local plan, and there's so many figures on this. I hope you've all been through all the 60 odd pages. I have, and I've marked up so many different figures on here, which may interest David Whitehead. There are so many figures on this report, and it's a job to make head or tail exactly what they are. What I'm going to do, Jodie's done a presentation which she's going to put up on the screen, which will explain a lot of the housing needs assessment. And what we need to take into consideration, I don't want to steal her thunder, is that we're putting this questionnaire out at the moment, and this will give us more information on just this document alone. But rather than me saying anything more, I'll leave Jodie to talk through her presentation, which she's going to put up on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I might have to just do it like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So this is a presentation just to set out some clarification on the housing needs assessment that was produced by ACOM. You'll see this on pages 23 to pages 116 on your agenda, and find my report on 117. So I'll just start off with some definitions of affordable housing as set out in the NPPF. I'll then go on to set out the local plan requirements for housing for the neighbourhood plan. I'll explain the key headlines of the ACOM report, and then I'll go on to explain how the local plan is meeting this need and how we could potentially bring forward affordable housing in the neighbourhood plan area. So just starting off with the definition of affordable housing. As you can see, there's quite a lot to it, and it's changed quite a lot over time. The latest definitions are included within the 2019 National Planning Policy Framework. The two main types of affordable housing are those for sale and those for rent, and you can see that from this, but I'll go on to discuss this a little bit further later on. So what is required from the new local plan? So the local plan strategy expects a minimum of 3,873 homes to be built in market towns between 2011 and 2035, with Henley having an outstanding requirement of 115 houses as of the 1st of April 2020. As David has mentioned earlier, it's likely that this outstanding requirement will be achieved by completions and commitments before the neighbourhood plan is submitted later on this year, hopefully. Oh, next year even. So hopefully it should be noted also that the main modifications to the local plan, that there is now a requirement for all market towns to seek to meet demonstrable local need through affordable housing, even where it would result in housing provision in excess of that outstanding requirement. So it's important to understand what the affordable housing need is within the neighbourhood area in order to determine whether we have demonstrable need that needs to be delivered. So ACOM were appointed to produce this housing needs assessment, and this is a starting point to determine the need for affordable housing in Henley and Harpston. It should be noted at this point that this is just one part of the evidence base informing housing policy, and it will go on to, I'll go on to state that there's some limitations to this study, and it is vital that we get locally specific level of need. So the key findings of the ACOM report are set out on this slide, and also on page 101 of the agenda. It sets out that the home ownership is the most common form of occupation in the neighbourhood area, that private renting and shared ownership has increased substantially over between 2001 and 2011. It also states that house prices have grown steadily in recent years, and also states that the neighbourhood area is characterised by a greater proportion of terrace and flats than South Oxfordshire. So there's a number of things that ACOM have highlighted within their report. It also goes on to make a number of recommendations. They suggest that there's a wide gap between the cost of renting and buying, which affordable home ownership products could fill. And it goes on to state that there would be a need for about 800 affordable home ownership over the plan period. I'll go on to explain a little bit more about that. It also states that there's an additional need for 527 affordable rented homes. And it acknowledges that the most urgent needs of those requiring affordable rent could be met through the SODC affordable housing policy. So moving on, their first suggestion in terms of affordable rent, they said that this need is up to 527 houses over the plan period. However, this is actually going to be met through the local plan. I'll just give you a little bit of context in terms of the local plan. The strategic housing market assessment establishes the housing needs for the whole district, which equates to a need of 386 homes per annum for South Oxfordshire, as you can see in this table. This need of 386 is going to be met through the local plan. The ACOM report have prorated this 386 homes to Henley and Harpston for the need for rented housing, which equates to 35.1 affordable housing per annum, or 527 over the plan period. So as you can see, the emerging plan will meet this general affordable housing need for the district, plus that of the needs of, which will include that of the needs of Henley and Harpston. This will be done through requiring a percentage of affordable housing in mixed-led schemes on 7 strategic sites. As you can see from this table here, it sets out those sites and displays that this could enable the delivery of up to 12,048 affordable homes through the requirement of 40% affordable and for the district and 50% around Oxford City. So that is with regards to the affordable rented need. So I'll just move on to that of the affordable home ownership need. So ACOM have set this out as a need of 800 houses that is based on the number of households who can afford to rent in the market but cannot afford to buy and may prefer to do so. The housing needs assessment suggests that households on average incomes can afford most tenures but not entry-level market homes for sale, and there's also a wide gap between the cost of renting and buying, which this affordable home ownership product could usefully fill. The ACOM report have included a complicated methodology for determining this need, as demonstrated by this table, and it is thought that part of this need will also be addressed through the local plan, through their general affordable housing requirements as set out earlier. So it's considered there is an element of double counting within this figure. These figures are also based on the census from 2011, which is almost 10 years out of date. It is therefore vital that we obtain more up-to-date information and local evidence of need, especially around the numbers of people that are currently renting and wish to buy. So as we've stated earlier in our committee, we will be publicising a survey to include a section on housing needs, and the results of this survey will help to determine the level of need in the area. It should also be noted that we will not be allocating for this high a number, and will be addressed mainly through local plan requirements. So I'll briefly just go on to the second part of my report that looks at ways that the community could take proactive measures to bring forward a community affordable housing. As mentioned earlier, there has been some interest in potentially setting up community land trust and for community-led housing, and this is a corporation that on behalf of a place-based community could bring forward affordable housing. I'm not going to go into details, but if you want further information on this, and just let me know. It would still be possible for communities to identify and progress affordable housing through this with the support of the CLT, and it's suggested that this should be done outside the neighbourhood plan process. However, the neighbourhood plan could support proposals by the Community Land Trust, and this could be part of any wording or supporting text to a housing policy. So another way to bring forward affordable housing is through development orders. These can be used to grant planning permission for development. This is also linked to community right to build order, which is specific and could be useful to bring forward small scale sites. Again, I won't go into details, but if you want more information, let me know. So just finally, the entry level exception sites are also ways forward to bring affordable housing. These could be delivered on non-allocated land on edges of towns and villages, which could be aimed at first-time buyers or first-time renters, and could be looked upon outside of the neighbourhood plan process. So just to recap, the housing needs assessment, which has been produced by ACOM, is just one part of the evidence base informing housing policy in the neighbourhood plan. As I've set out, there's some limitations to this, and this will be further explored when we're looking at the housing evidence and putting forward the topic papers. Alongside this, a housing survey will be used to help determine the actual need for Henley and Harpston, and specifically in relation to the numbers of renting that would like to buy. So it should be noted that the general housing need for Henley and Harpston will be met through the local plan policies and strategic allocations. And it also should be stressed that the neighbourhood plan will not be allocating for these numbers. There's a number of options to bring forward affordable housing and also complying with the local plan in the meantime. So this just sets out some of the considerations that the committee could follow. And I've talked about this quite a lot. And then there's just a recommendation at the end to bring this back to the Neighbourhood Plan Committee once we've received the evidence of the housing needs survey. Thank you.
If you could just take that off, please, Jodie.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, no rush. Okay, thank you. I did say at the start that you might find the figures interesting, and I don't wish to go into a long debate on this now. There is a recommendation which asks you to note the report, and we will debate the issue when the housing needs survey comes back. But a couple of figures in the report which are of interest on item 92, on page 23 of the report that I have, where it shows that Henley since 2011 have only built 26 affordable units, which tells you the story why there are such a high figure. We won't have to stick to these figures, don't get too excited, because in the local plan that's coming up, there is a figure for the amount of affordable houses within the district, and a lot of these would fall on the Oxford City boundary. But we still should, I believe, build more affordable units. And unfortunately, if we're going to build more affordable units, you may well have to build some private housing as well. But that's for a decision to the neighbourhood plan working group to discuss later down the track. If anybody would like to make any comments now, they're more than welcome to, but I would suggest that if you haven't read all the report, you reread it. I'll ask Jodie, have you sent out that presentation?
Oh, I can send that out. I can
Yeah,
see that
I
Dawn's
would
got a
ask
question.
you. Yeah, I'd ask if you could read the presentation again, in line with the ACON reports, and then I'd say once we've carried out the housing needs survey, I think that would be the time to debate all the issues. Don, you wish to speak?
Did you manage to get any information from SODC about waiting lists? Remember we raised that at the previous meeting?
Yeah, actually, I can answer that question. Yes, actually, I did. I did say I'd do it, and I did it, and I've got the. Did I not send you the figures, Don?
Oh.
Okay, sorry. I did get in touch with the.
Well done.
I did get in touch with SODC. I've got the figures, and I'll send them to you. The only one I didn't go back on, and I think you requested that, was what the figures were for Henley, or with an area of say 3 miles from Henley. I haven't.
Yeah, it's more relevant. Can they provide that or not?
I would imagine they can do, but I didn't go back on that one, but I will do. But I have got the figures of the waiting list. I've got
Okay,
those.
thanks very
I'll
much.
send those on to you. Anybody else wish to comment?
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. I'd like to thank, obviously, Jodie for that, because I know she worked on that over the weekend. It was either that or going for a walk up a big mountain. So I think it's a wise move that she did the presentation. So thank you for that, Jodie. I think it's an excellent presentation. Nobody else like to speak? Okay, thank you. Item 9, Oxfordshire Growth Board Vision. Is that you again, Jodie, or is that Patrick?
Yeah, no, that's me. So the Oxfordshire Growth Board, which is a joint committee of the 6 councils in Oxfordshire, together with key strategic partners, wants to develop a vision for Oxfordshire. And this is set out in the link that I provided on the agenda. It sets out the ambition for the county and in terms of the long-term changes. It's a set of overriding principles and desired outcomes. It could be used or helpful to feed into our own vision and objectives. So I probably suggest that if you did have any comments for this, then just send them over to me, because we've got until the 3rd of January.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment on that?
Yeah. Could I just say, Ken,
Yeah.
that it's markedly different from the last one. There's a very large section on sustainability, climate change, and I think it reflects the response they got to the last survey, where they had over 2,000 people highlighted that as a key topic. So they are responding. So it is worth responding to this.
Okay. Could we respond individually, or should we come through you, Jodie?
You can come through me if you want to send me your comments, so I can put them together.
Well, Patrick, what are you doing?
I think I would suggest individually and through Jodie, because the more we appear, you know, the bigger we appear, the better.
Okay, thank you for that. No other comment on there. Okay. Item 10, next steps. Jodie.
So I think we've talked about this quite a lot. We're bringing together the topic papers and starting to develop the policies through our working groups, finalising the vision and objectives. As we've mentioned, the surveys going out in the next week, so this will give us a better understanding. And we're proposing to hold exhibitions on the 5th and 6th of February next year for sites.
We chose was it the 5th and 6th of February? Yeah, we had a chat about this the other day, and the big concern about this, obviously, dare I say, the COVID-19, there was concern, and there is concern, well, I think just about everybody, what's going to happen in January. So we thought we'd keep away from January, and then hopefully by then, and the vaccination and bits and pieces, it will be clear for people to come to the exhibition and the presentation. The last thing we want to do, and I'll say this for Trevor Howell, the last thing we want to do is to hold a presentation and an exhibition with all these 13 sites and nobody turns up. You know, that really is the last thing. And my view would be, you know, if it means to go into March, it will have to go into March. We're meant to complete the neighbourhood plan by a year of the adoption of the local plan. And I think we're in the hands of COVID-19. I can't think of any other way where you can hold a proper exhibition or presentation on the likes of Zoom or Teams. I just cannot see that would work. So, you know, we have to do that. They did one in about 3 or 4 months ago. They did one in Tame Town Hall, and they did it all on one-way systems. And I've got all the information on how they made it work. But obviously, you can only allow so many people into the town hall or into the rooms at a specific time, but you know, I'm sure we can do that if needed. So I say we've aimed at the date of the first weekend in February next year for this, and I think come early middle January we will know if we are able to keep to that date. But that's the date we're aiming at. I would hope when we do the exhibition we can get members of the working group along to answer any questions that the public may need answering, or there will be hopefully a couple of officers, 2 or 3 officers there as well to answer any questions. Yeah, let's just leave that like that. So that's the reason for that. With the topic papers, I think if anybody's unsure, obviously get in touch with Jodie. And likewise with the policies now, we should be able to work with the policies from SODC, from the local plan, once that's adopted. And I think we can use the policies to our advantage as well. But we're going to that at a later date. So I think there are policies that will help this this review. I've got nothing else to add there to that item. Unless anybody would like to ask any questions. Okay, so we get Jodie to send out the presentation that she did. Other than that, next meeting, we put the next meeting down for the 25th of January. If we need to bring it forward, obviously we will do, but I think at the moment, if we work on that date, that seems quite sensible. Okay. As there's no AOB on the agenda, thankfully, and I thank you all for attending. Have a great Christmas in your bubble, whatever your bubble may be. Or if the worst comes to the worst, just